Before we start this episode, we do want to give just a massive biggest trigger warning. I'm sure you've heard of Jeffrey Epstein, but in case you haven't, we're going to be talking about suicide. We're going to be talking about rape, sexual abuse, child abuse, all of the above. Please click away. Don't want you to get triggered or feel uncomfortable, so we will see you next week. Hi.
Hello.
We missed you.
It's been so long.
I have a theory that November didn't happen, and I'm going to stick by it.
November was the worst. I would love to just erase.
So that's why there were no episodes. We were pretending like that month didn't make sense. We disappeared, and now we've reappeared for you.
We're back.
And I am just so excited about today's episode. But first, theme song. Paranormal girls into normal things. A paranormal girls into normal things. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Today we're getting into something that I am really a nerd about. I got into this after watching the docu-series on Netflix, I think it was, and then I was listening to podcasts, reading books, very, very into this. So today we're talking just specifically about Jeffrey Epstein's death. We could get into all of the horrific things that he did, but we don't have 24 hours, unfortunately. I only have 20 minutes of your time, so we're going to get a little Spark Notes version of all of the horrific things that he did. So basically, Jeffrey Epstein arranged this massive web of minors that he sexually abused. He manipulated them into pulling other minors in with offers of money. So basically, he had this massive prostitution ring of children.
Disgusting.
Fully horrible. A lot of the now women who he assaulted have come forward to tell their stories. However, he recruited little girls from all over the world, so we may never know the exact number of minors who he abused. Back in 2008, he was charged with solicitation of prostitution involving a minor. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 18 months in prison. But as you've heard me say once before, the prison system is fucked.
Yeah, what the fuck? And I'm sorry, only 18 months?
Correct.
For raping one person, that's barely a sentence.
Yeah,
and that's not what he did.
It was prostitution of a minor. And just one was what he was charged with, even though at this point, obviously they knew it was more. He only served 13 of the 18 months, and he was granted work release, which basically meant that he could leave the prison 6 days a week. He was really only there for one whole day and had to sleep there.
It's just not even funny. It's just not even funny.
It's solely fucked up. Of course, in the days that he was out in the world, he wasn't in prison, he continued to sexually abuse young girls. He was arrested again in July of 2019 on charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking and was denied bail ahead of his trial. On August 10th, he was found dead in his cell. This is the official report of his death from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. On Saturday, August 10th, 2019, at approximately 6:30 a.m., inmate Jeffrey Edward Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell in the Special Housing Unit from an apparent suicide at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, New York. Life-saving measures were initiated immediately by responding staff. Staff requested emergency medical services, and life-saving efforts continued. Mr. Epstein was transported by EMS to a local hospital for treatment of life-threatening injuries and subsequently pronounced dead by hospital staff. The FBI is investigating the incident. So now, let's jump into some theories about Epstein's death. In order to do that, we need to look at some facts, so we're going to take a closer look at his death. Attorney General William Barr described his death as a perfect storm of screw-ups, and I would have to agree. As you'll see, it was just far too convenient, the series of events that led to his death.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's true. It was a perfect storm. It just happened to be all of these things that happened so people don't know. So that's why these are called theories, but I have my feelings, and I believe my feelings represent the majority's feelings. He was being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, and this place was no joke. It was high security, you're constantly being watched, and it was an incredibly dangerous place. It was all these high profile inmates, terrorists, serial killers, scary ass people are being held here. It is one of the highest security prisons in the country. He had a cellmate, Nicholas Tartaglione, who was cleared of having any connection with his death. Obviously, he was investigated because he was the only person that was in the room. Epstein, however, did not spend all of his time in the cell. He was moved to suicide watch after an alleged attempted suicide shortly after his arrival at the correctional facility. So what suicide watch looks like here is basically you're in a cell by yourself, surrounded by windows, lights stay on 24/7, and any instrument that could be used for suicide are removed from the room. The bed is bolted down, there's no sheets, there's no shot, you're killing yourself in this room. It's basically impossible to harm yourself or be harmed when you're on suicide watch at this facility. 6 days later, he was taken off of suicide watch and placed back in his original cell, which is unheard of. Like, it was 6 days that he was suddenly, in their eyes, not suicidal. Like, no.
I'm so blown away by this.
There's a whole process you have to go through at this facility to get moved off of suicide watch. Like, they don't just take people off suicide watch after a few days.
Well, 6 days, like, that's not enough time to take anyone off of suicide watch.
No, or to even investigate, like, oh, well, maybe we made a mistake.
Yeah.
I feel like I would take more time.
Yeah.
If you really thought that.
It's just so unbelievable. Anyway.
Yeah. At the very least, what we're looking at here is severe negligence. Because if they really believe that Epstein's death was a suicide, then they made a massive, massive error in taking him off suicide watch not even a week after he was placed on it.
So then they're saying once he's back in his real cell, that's where he commits suicide?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But if you ask me, Epstein was being really stealthy in getting himself put on suicide watch, because generally people who harm children have targets on their back when they're in jails or prisons. They're the lowest of the low. Everyone hates you. So he likely had a lot of enemies in this facility and was worried about being hurt or killed. And he knew that the suicide watch cells were a lot more secure, so no one could hurt him there. I believe the first time he did, like, attempt suicide to get put on suicide watch. So at one of the highest security prisons in the country, there must be surveillance, right? Like, there must be cameras. There must be guards, right? Well, conveniently, the night of his death, the cameras malfunctioned. The guards that were supposed to check in on him every 30 minutes, which is their only job, left him alone for 3 hours. And when they were asked, they were like, we were asleep.
Like a freaking Disney movie.
Yeah. That's totally unheard of. These guards
you're
don't
fired.
do that.
Were they fired?
I don't think so.
Well, I feel like they were probably paid to say that.
Yeah. Well, I think they were paid to
Leave.
shoot.
Yeah.
I think they said, okay, shuffle off now. We got business to take care of. Clearly, this was suspect. And Epstein's brother hired a pathologist to look at his injuries, and he claims that they're more in line with a homicide. The official autopsy claims that he hanged himself. However, he broke a bone in his neck called hyoid bone, which is an incredibly difficult, like nearly impossible bone to break from a hanging. It's like right, for those of us with Adam's apples, it's like right up in there. So
I'm like thinking about neck injuries.
yeah, that bone is just so deep up in there, it's a lot more likely that it's broken from a strangulation, like with like intense pressure being placed on it. He had several bones broken in his neck, obviously, but the hyoid bone being broken is the most incriminating. Honestly, to me, if you think about the kind of man that Epstein was, he was living in extreme wealth. He skated past the law in countless instances. It's incredibly hard to believe that he would want to end his life this way. He was just such a narcissist that I feel like in his head, he's thinking, I'm gonna get out of this somehow.
Yeah, because suicide implies that you felt some remorse.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he did that.
Yeah.
Either you feel remorse or you're like scared that you're about to get the death penalty or life in prison or something.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was worried about that.
No. Like, literally sentenced for prostitution with a minor. He didn't even serve the full sentence and was given the sweetest of sweetheart deals. So I really don't think he was scared of his sentencing. I think he was scared to be in this prison and knew that he was going to get hurt if he was not on suicide watch. So he was being smart for himself, but there was a lot of people that wanted him dead in that room. And if we think about, like, the files that he had that were confiscated from his home, there's tons of records of celebrities, politicians, billionaires, like tons of high profile people associating with him and hanging around him, going to his private island, taking rides on his private plane. Like, he had cameras all over the place, like on his planes, like in his houses, like on the grounds of everywhere he was. So he had blackmail material for days. Any number or combination of these people he's blackmailing could have arranged for him to be killed while he was there.
Really high profile people, like Prince Andrew, the Clintons.
Yep. Prince Andrew, honestly, of all of the people that were roped in with Epstein and very clearly molesting young girls, he is the most disgusting. So one of the most outspoken of Jeffrey Epstein's victims was a woman named Virginia Roberts. She, at the time, was a minor, obviously, and Prince Andrew really took a liking to her when he came to visit. Epstein handed Virginia over to a lot of his friends and people he was hanging around with and traveled with her and really just took advantage of her. I mean, he was primarily finding these young girls in the Palm Springs area of Florida, which is the richest of rich and the poorest of poor. So he was taking advantage of these girls in these poor neighborhoods who needed some money and would pay them off with pocket change to him, which was $200 or $300. So Virginia Roberts got roped into this and ends up at Epstein's house with Prince Andrew, and they go out to a club. Prince Andrew's dancing on her and sweating all over her, and she is then raped by him later. And when she came forward and told her story, Prince Andrew went on BBC and was interviewed, and he goes, I have a disorder where my sweat glands are inactive, so there was no way it was me that did that because I don't sweat. That was his excuse. And then just said he didn't remember. They showed him the picture of him with his hand around Virginia Roberts' waist. And he was like, I don't know, I don't remember that. What?
I mean, it's just so disgusting, and it just happens so often. If you think you don't know a pedophile, you're wrong. You do. It just happens so often. If you want to terrify yourself, go watch To Catch a Predator on YouTube. It's just dude after dude after dude coming in trying to rape 13-year-old girls, and just all types of dudes, not just the guys who look skeevy. It's the teachers. Yeah. It's the freaking mailman. It's your preacher. Yeah. I don't know. It's everyone, and they're everywhere. Stop. Why? I don't get it.
This is one of the most terrible things for me in this case, because I just really wanted the best for all of these poor now women who went through this. But as a result of Epstein's death, all charges against him were dismissed, and ongoing sex trafficking investigations shifted attention towards his alleged associates, notably purported Madam Ghislaine Maxwell, who was arrested and indicted in July of 2020. So that basically means that all of these women never got their day in court. They never got to speak. After all of this work, all of their bravery, they didn't get their day. I mean, I hope they're all thriving and found a way to keep themselves up, but there's very little moving on in my mind. I don't know how one could move on from this without getting the chance to face him and say to him, we see what you did, and now we're all banding together, and you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. That is the only closure that I could imagine would feel even mildly good to them. And now he's escaped it again with
he
death.
Never had to own up for what he did. Now, so many other people are going to get away with this shit because he's dead.
Mm-hmm. But there are records, and they're encrypted and all over the world.
They're encrypted?
Yeah.
So, we can't see them?
And there's a whole system, too, where they have them set up so that, if one person that holds a code for something, so, someone has a file, someone has a code, so if one of those people dies, there's a fail-safe. There's a whole mess, a web, so that none of this stuff will ever be found out.
Jesus.
Yep.
Did you see what Trump said about Ghislaine Maxwell when she was arrested? He was like, I don't know what's happening with her. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything about that case, but she's a great woman and I wish her well. That sounds like someone who's trying to stay on good terms with someone who has a lot of dirt on them.
Yeah. Wow, I'm so happy he's not the president soon.
Oof. Wow. Trump's a pedophile.
Yeah. I mean, Virginia Roberts was recruited when she was working at one of Trump's resorts. Ghislaine found her And Ghislaine was like, oh, like, I have a man for you to massage. Would you like for us to mentor you? And then that's how she got pulled in.
That's how it started with a lot of them, right?
And now this man is giving you what's literally pennies to him.
Yeah.
Handing over $200 to a 14 or 13-year-old girl who wants a new fucking pair of shoes and is being told, like, hey, go do this, like, casual thing. Like, I know it sounds kind of weird, but, like, don't worry about it. Like, that's gonna sound appealing.
And they would get other kids to recruit the kids. So it's like another 13-year-old is telling me about this job.
Yeah, like my friend
where I can make $200 in like 45 minutes. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Hey, I might do that. Like when I was 13, like, I don't know. It's just disgusting. It's really, truly so gross.
The thing that pisses me off though, and like I've listened to a lot of these like podcasts and people that were involved around it and them saying like, well, we had no idea. I just like don't know how you had no idea.
Oh,
I don't understand that. One of my favorite podcasts of this was Epstein, Devil in the Darkness. And one of the primary people that they spoke to was Epstein's driver for many years, and he quit. I don't remember at what stage he stopped driving for him. He was driving a lot of these young girls around, and he said that he and like the other people that were working for Epstein would make jokes and like call Epstein the pedophile, but then they said that they had no idea the extent of what was going on, which I just have a very hard time believing.
It's all just bullshit. I think that's the kind of amazing thing about social media is like this shit happens all the time. Like people get killed to stay quiet. Like that's just something that you can find a lot of examples of.
Yeah.
But like back in the day, it wasn't like people heard about it and then could tweet about it and get everyone's attention about it. Mm-hmm. It was like it happened and then it would sort of blow over. And I really love how everyone was like, bullshit, and everyone on the internet just sort of jumped on it and it became very much a meme. I mean, but the sad thing is it doesn't even matter. Like it doesn't matter that everyone's still on it, like
because the people that are hiding it are the people that are in charge.
Right. We'll probably never really know. I mean, more information might come out, but
I don't think it's gonna happen until all the people that are in charge now are dead.
Probably. I guess we'll see what happens with the trial with Ghislaine. Mm-hmm. But
we can't agree on how
I don't know.
I don't think anyone can.
I guess we'll see. Maybe we'll do like a follow-up episode.
I would love to do an episode on Ghislaine. She, at the very least, was a very involved accomplice. And there's obviously also reports of her having raped these young girls.
Yeah. This is very heavy.
Yeah.
Next week won't be as heavy.
I mean, we sit here and we talk about these things and we're laughy, jokey people, so we like to laugh and jokey, but we can't do that with this. So if you came here for some laughs, come back next week.
Come back next week. Next week will be fun.
Yeah. This was just something that was very interesting to me and I definitely wanted to talk about.
It is so interesting, and it's also just, I think it's important to, again, just keep this message. Like, I know it's memey now, but like, it's just incredibly true. Like, Epstein didn't kill himself.
Definitely.
Let's not forget that.
Definitely
like,
not.
Who it was, it's sort of hard to speculate about that because it really just could have been.
It was, well, I don't think it was one person that made the decision.
Yeah.
I think it was a group of politicians, billionaires, whatever, who were like, this man has the ditty dirt on us and he cannot live. And so now we have to recruit all of these guards and the security at this correctional facility to assist us in getting this man killed. There's just so many people that hated him. There's so many people that it's also just like impossible for me to think that it was one person that came up with this. I think it was a horde. And I think that horde of people is running this country.
Yeah, I mean, that's how this stuff keeps happening. Like, it's the judges, it's the politicians, like, it's all these people in power, like, who stay in power because it's the same thing with cops. Like, they're all just willing to, like, protect each other.
Exactly, because they're all doing the same shit.
Yeah. It's so disgusting.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting.
We really just, like, scratched the surface with this. Yeah. So I highly recommend watching the docuseries on Netflix. I'll link below my, like, fave podcast books on this because it's very interesting to me. I think that if it's not something that we study, it's something that could happen again. And that's why I think that knowledge is power in our case. Thank you guys for going on this ride with us. I am really glad to have gotten this episode out of my system because it had to happen. And I'm really glad that this was the episode that we're kickstarting season 2 with.
Season 2!
Season 2, baby!
We can have as many seasons as we want. There are no rules.
Can we get a 69?
Yeah, we'll just go to 69 and then we'll stop. Anyway.
Yeah, so we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Bye.